Digital 410 proudly presents the What's the Scuttlebutt podcast with your hosts Don Abernathy, Jeff Copsetta, and Henry Sledge.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the What's the Scuttlebutt podcast, your favorite World War II based podcast. And it's Monday. But hopefully we're the bright side of your Monday, because if your Monday is anything like mine, it's a Monday. But anyhow, joining us on this lovely kind of Monday, joining us as always, Mr. Jeff Copsetta and Henry Sledge. Gentlemen, how y'all doing tonight?
You said, it's Monday.
It's Monday.
This is the best part.
Right. Come on, guys. We're together.
The best part of a Monday.
You know, I was thinking earlier, this is everyone's sanctuary in a crazy world. You can come here to get away from things. And I got to thinking, well, how crazy is that we take the content of the insanity of World War II, and that's all of our sanctuary away from the craziness that's going on in regular world now. But hey, that's why we're here. We're here to help you get away from things. So hopefully you enjoy our little time, our little get-together, as Jeff used to so lovingly refer to as our little threesome. But nay, not tonight. Tonight we're going all out with a foursome. That's right, Jeff. Why don't you introduce everybody to the fourth man to this party?
Yeah, man. How do you catch me off guard like that? Golly.
That's what we're doing. We do no show prep, and I catch you off guard.
You know, Henry's the first one that said threesome.
Actually, that is true. That is true.
But we just went along with it. Yeah. It is absolutely my pleasure to introduce again a returning guest, my friend Dennis Blocker II. If you did not see the first episode we had with Dennis on,
shame on you, first and foremost.
Yes, shame on you.
Yeah,
you were
definitely
wrong. Please go back, get on the website, episode 136. It was one of the most powerful episodes I've ever done with a guest on the show. I mean, and I'm not just saying that. That was we had so much great feedback. So I'm very excited about tonight. We're going to have a little bit of a lighter topic than we did in episode 136. This was Dennis's idea, right? So if it flops,
it's on him.
Contact him, man. But,
email him at dennis@showflop@gmail.com.
Right. But yeah.
But if you loved it, you can email us at mailcall@WTSPWWII.com.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. For our listeners who, if you've listened to us before, we talk a lot of war movies, and the good, the bad, I had no idea, this is amazing, or never doing that again. So yeah, I'm gonna let Dennis take it away, and we do have one rule: we don't say the thin red line on this podcast. Just so you know.
Well, you already broke the rule. Right. What is your opinion of the thin red line? We'll give you 20 minutes and go.
Yeah, that was a snoozer for me. Yeah. Speaking of
we've hit that. Let's move out. Let's move on. We're beyond that. Dennis, what's the first one you want to talk about?
Well, it's like growing up in a military family. I lived all over the world, lived in Iceland, lived in Guam, lived all over the States. You're a DOD kid, Air Force brat. I knew all about the, fighter jets and this and that. Well, living in Iceland, we had two stations, right? And they were both the base stations. So one was like at this revolving cafeteria food, what was at the base cafeteria and what was coming up at the USO club and this and that. And then the other one was base programming. And if you're on a military base, there's going to be a lot of war movies to get shown, and which was great for me. And actually, the first movie I ever remember seeing wasn't Mary Poppins or The Wizard of Oz. It was Von Ryan's Express.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Iron Eagle.
It was Von Ryan's Express. And there was just something about that like captured just my imagination. One for one, the Germans, the best dressed of World War II, the Italians who could care less what was going on, the British who were always conniving, and the Americans who were so cool. I loved that movie. But that wasn't the movie that really... The movie that I absolutely loved is 30 Seconds Over Tokyo. And have you guys seen that one?
Yes. I remember seeing it when I was a little kid.
Nope.
Well, was that Van Johnson?
Yep, that's right. Van Johnson. Yep. Yeah, 30 Seconds Over Tokyo. One of the things that I really enjoy about it was that it really was one of the first movies to depict just the how hard it was for these guys.
Well, apparently it
And they
came out in
really,
1944, so I mean, it was fresh in
yeah,
everybody's memory.
exactly. And actually, one of the actual Doolittle Raiders, who survived, obviously, he was shot down over Germany, and he was in that Stalag 3 for the Great Escape. He was involved with digging the tunnel Harry. He didn't escape through it, but he was in charge of that. He was on the Doolittle raid. But yeah, it was one of the first movies, that 30 Seconds Over Tokyo, that really showed, like, for instance, when the guys got hurt, like, typically they just kind of clutch their chests and this and that. But in 30 Seconds Over Tokyo, man, when they crash on the beach and they're coming out of the water, these guys, I mean, it was gritty. You could really feel their broken shoulders and their broken limbs, and it really stood out to me that they took that chance. And as a matter of fact, I was looking up, and there was an article written and right after it came out, and it says, there surely will never be a more glorious 30 seconds over Tokyo, nor a more gallant men to carry it out. Yet war is not glamorous, and no film has so far done more to illustrate what a slow process is victory. And I think that is a tribute. Those guys took a chance. Jeff, have you seen that 30 Seconds Over Tokyo?
Yes, multiple times. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I saw it as a kid. And after visiting with you last month and you mentioning that, I said, man, I need to go back and rewatch it. I remember it being kind of long. And as a kid, you're like, So, yeah, I went back and rewatched it. And, yeah, what really impressed me, and like Don pointed out, it's 1944. This is a wartime production, right? So to see these the amount of B-25s that they were using for filming, I loved the training aspect of it. I loved that whole backstory when they were, I want to say there was a time when they were actually at an airfield here in Texas, right? As part of the training, I think. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Clark Field maybe or something, I thought. But yeah, I just thought it was interesting to see kind of they really set the tone for, like you said, how difficult this mission was going to be. It didn't start out on the aircraft carrier by any means.
Yeah.
So it gives them time for some really good character development. And of course, Van Johnson's, he's a great actor, right? I mean, this guy fits the part so well. And but you really have time to really kind of get to know these guys and get connected with them enough to where you do have that connection when you see their broken bodies and what it took to get the job done. And then, of course, the survivors coming home, some of them, maimed. So, I think it's really one of the top 5 to me wartime productions for sure. And what went into it from an advising perspective, more than just propaganda,
Yeah, absolutely.
Here's something we haven't done in a while. This is great because I haven't seen the movie, so I won't even feel bad for not participating. But the 3 of you have seen it. Henry, I want to give you the first crack at it. Rotten Tomato score. What is the main critic score, and what is the audience score?
So I'm just taking a guess, right? Because I sure don't know. But
well, if you knew, it wouldn't be a game, now would it?
I'll say 82 and 79.
Dennis?
I'm going to go with the critic score of 86 and the crowd, the audience, of 93.
And Jeffrey?
Well, I am notoriously horrible at these guesses. I always go the opposite of what I think it should be because I think it's such a good movie, so most people won't like it. So I'm gonna hover in the 65 to 70 range for both, even though I think it's better than that.
Now, interestingly enough, this movie came out in 1944, but it only has 5 top critic ratings in all that time.
Wow.
So some could say, well, that's the reason why, but this is the first time ever on this podcast with 6 reviews, 30 Seconds Over Tokyo, 100% with the critics.
Wow.
And And with the audience score of over 500 ratings, a solid 75%.
Wow.
So this movie apparently stands up, and everyone who's seen it, with the exception of 25% of the weirdos in the audience, agree with you guys that this is a fantastic movie. And so it's probably
Is it possible, because I haven't seen it since I was a kid, can I find this thing on Netflix or Amazon Prime or any of that?
Absolutely.
I'm not going to be surprised if it's on YouTube.
I
Well,
was going to
that too.
say, I think I streamed it on YouTube for like $2 or $3.
I'm looking right now.
Yeah.
I got to rewatch it. This is making me want to see it again.
Yeah, it's so good. It's made off this book right here by one of the pilots, Ted Lawson.
It looks like it's on Apple TV. Yeah, it looks like maybe.
That's who Van Johnson played, right? Dennis was.
Yes, sir. That's right.
Ted Lawson.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it looks like it's streaming on Apple.
Okay.
And you can probably find some bootleg version on YouTube somewhere.
And Spencer Tracy.
Yeah.
Yeah, who did Spencer Tracy play? I guess he would have been Doolittle, maybe?
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was and Robert Mitchum, one of his first appearances. Yeah, this was made to comply with the request to, war materials. So printed during the war, 30 seconds over Tokyo. It's really good. I read it in a couple days. But now, if you had to pick like a favorite movie moment, what would you guys? I mean, mine is rock solid, and no doubt what mine is. But I wonder what your guys' movie moment. I'll tell you what. While you're thinking about it,
Please.
I'll go. Mine is Empire of the Sun. Have you guys seen that?
Yeah, only
But a
once.
long time ago.
It's the moment when Christian Bale's character, he's a young teenage, he's a young boy, and he's idolized pilots his whole life. And here he is separated from his parents at the beginning, 1940. And he's just on his own, and he's just moved from camp to camp, and he's trying to survive. And he's slowly losing his light, right? He's losing that inner light, and he's starving. And there at the very end, he's just about lost hope. His face is gaunt. He's dragging his feet. And all of a sudden, the base he's at gets hit by an air raid. And he runs to the top of this building. And of course, it's a Steven Spielberg movie. So John Williams is doing the music. And he gets to the top of the building. And right at that second, a P-51 comes ripping out. And the camera I'm getting goosebumps right now, even thinking about it. The camera slows down, and Christian Bale is almost level with the pilot on the top of this building as this guy is going across the airfield. And he's looking at him, and the pilot looks over at him, and he's strafing. And at the end, he yells, P-51, Cadillac of the skies. And it's just like this sweeping epic music. And every time I see that, I get goosebumps. And it's just like, because that was me, that was like, I could just picture me. It was just an amazing moment.
I remember that scene because that was what HBO used as their trailer. That scene right there. I remember that phrase and that scene. And it's so funny. It's on the topic of movies, but kind of going back to what you're talking about, growing up around a military base. We spoke about this in the past, but when I moved to Ohio, I lived on Rickenbacker Air Force Base, which at that time it was basically just a skeleton Air Force base. They threw some air shows, and some planes would stop over every once in a while for refuels. But my brother was in the Civil Air Patrol, and so he had a pass to the base, which was great for freaking middle schooler, and he could take us. I'm in elementary school. So we get to go on the base, and hey, there's a Sherman tank climbing, and we're playing in Sherman tanks as a kid. We go to the PX, where I bought my first cassette tape, which was Iron Maiden's Only the Good Die Young. We're buying gas mask bags there. We're buying old M1 helmets. And, of course, now we're all outfitted. So when the rest of the kids at our school who don't live near the base, they're playing guns with their crap that their parents picked up from the Army surplus store. We got the stuff right off the base, got our M16s and all that. Used to go to get my hair cut there. Walked in, 5th grade. Of course, Playboys all spread out on the table and all that stuff, which, you didn't want to look at. But, yeah, we spent a lot of time. And not only that, but because the base was mainly populated down World War II, outside of the base, because the houses we lived in was all military housing during the war. And then in the 80s sometime, they got bought out and they made it just commercial, low income housing, townhomes and single family homes you can rent. But they had the old movie theater, which was run down, the old hospital, all this military stuff from World War II was all abandoned and run down. And we all used to skateboard and find open doors and skateboard down the hallways of these old hospitals and the old movie theater and all that stuff. And it was so damn cool just to think we got to grow up around that area. And as I was saying before, HBO at the time, Iron Eagle was all over. All those like teenage military movies. What was the one where they were at the boys' school that got taken over by the terrorists and they're all
Taps?
No, not Taps. The other one, the one that had the kid.
Red Dawn?
Well, Red Dawn was out at the time, but also the cat who went on to play in Lord of the Rings. It was kind of like a generic version of Taps, but it was a boys' school, and then they get taken over by terrorists, and they have to save the day. And when you're like 5th grade out there playing guns, you're like reenacting all these movies. But for me, and this is a little weird one because you kind of sprung on us. What's our favorite scene? And I was thinking about it, and I think the one that gets me every time, and he's such a great actor. It's when Giovanni Ribisi, the medic in Save It Private Ryan, when he dies right after the German bunker raid. And that minute where they're all gathered around him and he's looking up, and that scene gets me every time. That's a damn good scene in that movie.
Yeah, he nailed it, man.
What about you, Henry?
Man, I don't know that I can answer the question. I mean, there are too many. I got too many, I mean, just so many scenes I loved. I couldn't pick one.
When he's swimming underwater in the opening credits of Thin Red Line.
I'm going to throw something at you.
What about you, Jeff?
I'm with Henry. Maybe if I had a little time to prepare for something like that, but I'm going back through my head. I mean, there are so many that I wish I had like this elaborate, beautiful answer for this that everybody's like, oh, I cannot pinpoint one. I have so many that I'd like to maybe quick mention. I'll be a little cliche here, but I'll go to, if we can call the Pacifica movie. There is one scene that there's just something about it that never gets old. And it's literally when they are on the Amtrak heading to Peleliu. You see it into the water. It's dark. You see them, as it first starts, right? They just kind of, they all get kind of jostled, I mean, of course, that's real stuff, right? They come in, the salt water comes up over the bow of this Amtrak, and it just goes from inside to outside these clamshell doors to this mayhem. And I don't know if it's the coloring in post-editing or something, but the color of the water mixed with the gray steel of the Amtraks, the tan bobbling helmets, the sounds of the Maudeuses, Hellcats overhead, smoke everywhere on the beach. Like, it's just simply exactly how I picture Peleliu.
Can I back up from that 5 seconds, Jeff? Because that's a great scene.
Yeah.
When all the guys are in the belly of the LST, and they start helping each other up the tailgates. And although the one my dad was in was a 2, it didn't have a drop tailgate, but they're all getting up in, and you hear those. You hear them cranking up those 250 horsepower radial engines. Because, Amtrak's had radial engines, man. I love this. That was just, and you hear everyone just, they're all revving up, man. That just,
it's like the beginning.
It makes me think of, my dad wrote about how the whole exhaust, or the whole cargo bay filled with exhaust fumes.
Right.
And then they open the bow doors, and the light streams in with all the diesel fumes, and then your scene, that was pretty powerful.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah, and that's the Amtraks had radial engines. They were Continental 670s. It's the same motor that they had in M3 Stewarts. It's the exact same motor that they had in the Yellow Peril, the PT-19s.
So these guys load up. They start off with some carbon monoxide poisoning. Then they open up. Then they hit the water. Then they get seasick. They throw up their steak and eggs, and now they got carbon monoxide poisoning. They're seasick. Right. Then they're piddle around out there in circles for 2.5 hours. Now they're cramped up. Their back's hurt. They can't move. They're seasick. They got carbon monoxide poisoning. And then they hit the beach and expect to run and live.
Right. I mean, so, that one just kind of gets me every time. There's a couple scenes from Memphis Belle. There's a couple scenes from Sands of Iwo Jima. I was just talking about this scene the other night from Patton, where he's the repercussions of slapping the soldier, and he's not going to lead the boys into Normandy. That was given to Bradley, and he's in this long haul, and man. Like George C. Scott, I don't know if this scene ever happened. I don't know if these words were ever said by the real Patton, but I think it rings true that that people say, and I believe it. George C. Scott was a better Patton than Patton, right? But an entire world at war, and I'm left out of it. God will not permit this to happen. I will be allowed to fulfill my destiny. That scene gives me chills. There's a few from Patton that really kind of ring to his passion throughout history, just the history of combat in general. You go back and read his poem from 1922, Through a Glass Darkly. If you read all, whatever it is, 24 stanzas, if you don't get chills from that, man, you're not human. But yeah, I mean, there's scenes from 12 O'Clock High that I'm like, oh man, that was awesome. That was perfect. I got too many.
Gately.
Did you see Unbreakable? Either one of you? Any of you?
I did not.
Yeah.
I did not.
There's a scene in there Jeff probably enjoyed, and that's when he was walking on the catwalk. Remember the Bombay doors were open? And they showed him like walking over the catwalk, and the camera's aiming down into his feet. I think he went up there to dislodge a bomb or something. It was, with the CGI and all that, you're like, holy hell. I mean, you feel like you're in that Bombay door with just the wind blowing in there. You're walking on that damn near a metal 2x4. It's insane, like how minimalistic a lot of that crap was, especially when it came to the airplanes. It's like, yeah,
absolutely.
Gotta make room for the bombs.
To me though, the catwalk scene from a bomber. You gotta go back to Memphis Belle, right?
Yeah.
Cranking that. We're not gonna die. We're not gonna die. We're not gonna die. It's just that bomber was just so blown apart. And talking to Captain Morgan the first time we met him, to be able to okay, how much of this? And he said, guys, we lost engines. We had a big chunk of the tail shot off. The whole tail was riddled with flak and bullets when their tail gunner Johnny Quinlan, their only actual injury of all 25 missions, gets clipped in the kneecap, right? Like not even enough to warrant a Band-Aid. They had landing gear. They landed with flat tires that were punctured from flak and all this stuff. And he told me and my dad, he said, that movie was just the damage from all 25 missions put into one.
Yeah.
Just everything in one mission. But yeah, Dennis, great question, man. My gosh, that's a hard one to answer, man.
I'll jump in too. Everybody talks about the first 20 minutes of Saving Private Ryan. The part that got me even more than that was the scene in Rommel at the end.
Yeah.
The combat, where a shell goes off or a hit goes off and the guy goes through the window just as the Tiger tank's coming by.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was, and also when rewind a few minutes before the shooting starts and the Tigers are, they're coming down that little alleyway and the guy looks up through the window and you hear the wind, and you see through that murky, dusty window, you see that German soldier look down. You see that peaked hat just silhouetted looking down.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, oh, Jesus, man, they're about to be in it.
Yeah. And then you can see from their perspective where they're in the foxhole looking up and the ground, they can see the ground is shaking and it's falling down from the...
And you know what, like right before the tanks turn down the street, you hear them. Those tanks, those treads grinding
so
on
ominous,
gravel.
just ominous.
Puppy dog, he's a puppy. He's a puppy.
What was it? Oh, there.
He's a puppy.
Sneaky bread.
You can see the beagle ears. I think we'd be remiss since we're on the topic of Save a Private Ryan we need to mention the passing of Tom Sizemore.
Yeah, good point.
And people who never felt the weight of an M1 helmet, they would kind of laugh, because I think Tom Sizemore does it in the scene. I think when they're one of the other guys, they end up throwing their helmet at him because their guns are jammed. They're throwing a helmet.
Oh yeah.
Helmets are damn heavy, and you clock somebody just in the right spot on their head, you'll take them out. But yeah, I'm sure everybody knows, but for those of you who don't, Tom Sizemore, Saving Private Ryan actor who was bright 1990 star, burned out under the weight of his own domestic. Well, I'm sure we got to include all that horrible stuff. But the actor suffered from a brain aneurysm on February 18th at his home in Los Angeles. He died in his sleep on Friday at the hospital in Burbank, California, his manager said. Sizemore became a star with acclaimed appearances in Natural Born Killers, the cult classic crime thriller Heat, but serious substance.
Heat.
Let's not forget, even though the movie's not that great, he did a great role in Pearl Harbor. So he's in Pearl Harbor and Saving Private Ryan both.
Let's not forget Colonel McKnight. Black Hawk Down.
Oh, yes. Another great movie.
How old was he, Don?
He was only 61.
Damn.
I tell you, the older I get, the younger old gets.
That's young, man.
Yeah.
That's too close to me.
Yeah.
That is young.
Brain aneurysm. So, thoughts.
Can I mention the? Because we were talking about this before we came over.
Yeah, go ahead.
That scene from the Pacific. My history with working EMS in 23 years, and then my battles with PTSD. Man, seeing that was it Joe Mazzello?
Yep.
Yeah, played my dad.
Yeah, he played your dad in the movie, in the show.
I know him more as a kid from Jurassic Park, but go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. But when he comes off the ship and he's just haggard and he's got that stare and he pulls it off. And that is like one of the most memorable scenes. I just remember him looking at the Red Cross ladies, like he couldn't imagine, like, what are you doing? Like it reminded him of a world that he heard of, and it reminded him of some place that he had heard of and he was never going to see again, and he just couldn't contemplate. Man, and he said no words. If
I can add to that, Dennis, so I remember my dad and me talking about that when I was a kid, because the part of that he remembered the most, of course, it's in his book, but where the lieutenant, the freshly starched, freshly shaven, and of course I
never seen a day of combat.
And he's standing there, like, okay, Sonny, let's go move out. And it's very obvious that this lieutenant is fresh out of officer training school or officer candidate school. And I remember my dad telling me how he and Snafu both just looked at him incredulously, like, it was that moment of stop-start comprehension that this guy hadn't even heard a shot fired. Did he really just say that? And then I remember him describing to me how he just looked at the guy, not like he wanted to start a fight, but the lieutenant just kind of looked down like he knew these guys had been through it.
He saw it. He had no combat experience, but he saw something in your dad's face and Snafu, and he was alarmed.
They did a great job with that scene. That's a good one for you to pick up on, man, because when we were leading up to it and telling them stuff and being interviewed, they listened to us on that one. And a lot of stuff too, but they really got that.
Well, and also let's not overlook the scene in the mittens line at the college. Well, surely the Marine Corps had to teach us something.
Oh my gosh, that was powerful.
That's another one I remember hearing firsthand. Yeah, I love that. I think the only thing with that, when he said, "Lady, they taught me how to kill Japs," he like Joe did a great job in that scene, but he leans over and says, "They taught me how to kill Japs. I got pretty damn good." I mean, my dad, when he said it really loud, because the girl was kind of starting to embarrass him and starting to titter, and didn't they teach you anything? And he like, they taught me how to kill Japs,
and I got pretty damn good
just
at
like everything stopped.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, man. Another scene that really gets me is when Akak asks your dad, "You got a watch?" You know, you remember that scene, Jeff?
Yeah.
Wake me up in 30 minutes.
Wake me up in 30 minutes. And that
It was
look,
20 minutes.
20.
that look, his men would have died for him willingly, without a question.
Yeah.
You know, and it was just that love on their faces to see him, and it was just, man, so powerful.
That's probably one of the most quoted scenes by me at an event. Everybody stand around, I just pull up a patch of grass, sit down, and lay down. Why stand when you can sit? Why sit when you can lay? Why lay when you can sleep?
So good. Did he really say that?
And I don't know. I think that was the writers.
That could have been a very common, one of those common things that went around the court at the time too. That just may have been one of those common sayings that they included in the thing. But yeah, I definitely say that one a lot. Just people be standing around, I just lay on the ground. Pull up some.
I like the way Gunny kind of joined in with him at the end.
Oh yeah.
You know, never walk when you can sit, never sit when you can sleep, or whatever the actual
Woof.
Yeah.
You stovepipe boys.
No dog gonna keep me comfortable. I got a dog. His name's Deacon. I was talking to Sledgehammer.
You stovepipe boys, stay alert. Woof.
Ball peen hammer, like a little hammer.
Thanks, Sledgehammer. All right, snafu, shit, ass, F up. That's funny because Brendan Fletcher, or I think, is it Brendan somebody? I don't want to. Don, was that the guy's name who played Bill Layden?
I can look. He played he played
Dexter
in
Fletcher or Brendan Fletcher?
He played in a TV series too.
I met him on one of the We Happy Few podcasts. We did a watch along. We did, Dennis. Really nice guy. But it's cool. He was chosen for that role because he is such a great actor. He did such a great job. But the real Bill Layden was a big guy, man. He was 6'2".
Oh wow.
Yeah, I'm looking. Keep on talking. I'm seeing his picture. I'm just trying to find the actor's name.
Man, and that one scene in that tent in Walking Point where just kidding. Man, I can't believe we got this far. Oh, speaking of that, the director of Walking Point just texted me. That's funny.
That's cool.
Real quick,
I can't
while we're
believe
on
we
the
haven't
Pacific,
talked about Band of Brothers yet.
Well, real quick, while we're on the Pacific. After reading your dad's book, China Marine, I understand why they did it because they're reflecting how things happen. But it's like now that I go back and watch, it's like the whole thing of him walking off the train without saying bye to Snafu.
Yeah,
And
that
then-
always bugged me.
And then you find out, well, that never happened because your dad was sent off to China, and so
Somebody who was, and Jeff wants to get on to Band of Brothers, and I hear that. But somebody, it may have been in a podcast of Bruce McKenna. He said that he had talked to a Marine Corps general who referred to that very scene, and he said, "Okay, you guys did a really good job on this thing," because he said, that scene where Sledge is getting off the train and Snafu Shelton is, which one was it? Snafu was getting off, and
Snafu was getting off.
Yeah,
and
Snafu
Sledge is asleep. Yeah,
yeah.
because he was New Orleans, my dad would have been Mobile. So
Yeah.
And so he said, and he just looks at Sledgehammer lying there asleep, and he doesn't wake him up. He just looks at him and then walks on off the train to begin his life. He said, that right there told me you guys got it right. Instead of waking him up and, hey, man, it was nice knowing you. He just looks at him and leaves him to sleep and moves on.
Well, it never occurred to me until just now, but he probably realized after all the shit they've been through, don't wake up a guy if he has the opportunity to get a good sleep in.
Yeah, that's what I always thought too.
Yeah.
Like, just let him rest.
There wasn't anything that they could have said that would have conjured up what they were feeling or what they had going on in their head anyway. It wasn't even worth it.
Yeah.
And one part that always makes me cry is when it shows your dad and your grandfather out hunting at the end, and your dad is just like, I just can't I can't do it, and it's just like that. Just oh, it gets me.
There were stories very similar to that in the Band of Brothers spin-off books with guys who were avid hunters before they ever went to war, and they came back and they're just like, it's not a fair fight. I know what it's like to be that deer, and they just could never bring themselves to hunt ever again.
Yeah, that's me. I don't hunt. I was never in combat or anything like that, but I definitely saw hundreds of people die in the emergency room, all ages and circumstances, and I just couldn't see anything else die.
Yeah.
I just could not. It just made me sick to my stomach, even to think of it. Yeah. So I just really appreciated that scene because I could feel it, and it just, oh, I knew how that felt, and I was just, I was so thankful they put that in there instead of whitewashing it. And I don't even know if it happened, but it kind of spoke true for my own grandfather, and I felt like it kind of represented him too in a way, coming back from Iwo Jima and all his buddies getting killed. And I was talking to, I don't want to get off onto, I know we're talking about movies and stuff.
No, go ahead. We got time.
Yeah, but okay, well, I was explaining to my mom and dad about the gravity of what my grandpa Lemke experienced on the gunboat there at Iwo Jima. And I says, when you're a Marine or you're a soldier, many times, not all the time, but many times your whole purpose is to advance. So, you advance cover to cover and you're moving, and a guy gets hit. Sometimes you don't even know that one of your buddies got hit. You're advancing and you keep moving, and graves, the medics come up and they evacuate them. And you don't even see it. And I was explaining to my mom that, on the gunboat, their buddies were just blown to pieces, and they had to carry on and walk through all of this just gore and their body parts and their limbs and all of this. And they had to stay there. And then Leo Bedell, the engineering officer, told me, 4 months later, the rest of the crew had been given survivor's leave, but he had to stay. He was the only one left. And he said that 4 months later, they'd go through storms and they'd be down in the galley, and the water seeping through the welds would just be blood. It would just be blood pools underneath the bottom of the ship, just sliding around, all the blood from all their dead shipmates. And I think that's, whenever I saw that scene from your dad there on hunting, and he just couldn't bear the thought of just taking a life, one more life. It was just, I don't know. It really spoke to me. Yeah. And I don't even know if it happened, but I just appreciated that they put that in there and showed that.
Well, there's a couple areas in The Longest Day that I just finished reading. And that's one of the things they're talking about is when you're driving the landing crafts or any of the, smaller vehicles out there, and you see a landing craft get hit by a mortar, a shell, what have you, and the guys fly out and they're in the ocean and they're stop, help. You can't stop because you got so many vehicles, and they're talking about how they just had to look away, grin and bear it, and just keep on trucking because you've got the advance coming in. You can't stop to pick these guys up. You're going to bottleneck the whole advance. And then once you got on the beach, the infantry guys had to deal with the same thing. Someone gets hit around you. If you stop to try to pick them up, you're increasing your chances of getting hit. You just got to keep moving forward. Like you said, their whole objective is just to keep advancing forward.
Goodness gracious.
On a lighter note, you want to segue into Band of Brothers. I was on YouTube the other night, and the Ron Livingston DVD, recording from the Band of Brothers box set. Did you guys ever see that?
No.
If you get out your Band of Brothers box set and go to the special features, that during the whole thing, HBO took Ron Livingston aside, gave him a camera, said, "I want you to record boot camp, record your entire experience."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I remember seeing it a long time ago. And I remember his first day there, no one told the cadre that he's going to have his camera. And his sergeant jumps his ass, and it's our very own Freddie Joe Farnsworth. And I went back and watched this thing, and Freddie Joe was in this quite a bit, the young Freddie Joe. And it's funny to see him back then and the way he was talking to them. And there's a lot of him getting up in Ron Livingston's ass throughout this thing. So if you want to see a younger Freddie Joe just crawling up these guys' ass, go watch the Ron Livingston behind the scenes when they're going through boot camp and trying on the wardrobe and going through jump school and all that. Freddie Joe's in quite a bit of it. It's quite entertaining now that we've had him on the show and we know him.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think there's a good chance he's gonna watch this or listen to this. So we had to have some kind of like, man, you know that one scene where he comes up on a white horse? Yeah.
Yeah, fat boy.
Come on, fat boy.
Come on, fat boy, let's go.
But speaking of Band of Brothers, though, I think this is a good time to bring it up. Man, had an unbelievably amazing time last week being on We Happy Few. This is, this is like old news for Henry, right? He's been on there 6,000 times, and these are his friends. This was the first experience for me, and all I kept hearing, oh man, Matt Leach, you're gonna love Matt Leach, and we've all known Leighton now for so long, and was just, I don't know, man, it was just the most fun I've ever had, and I just felt like we got right into it. Like I was talking with you guys,
yep.
Like I had a rapport with these two guys already, and man, so yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was just a lot of fun. So hopefully I'll go back and watch that or listen to it.
Well, that's the beauty of this hobby, this community is the four of us could be complete strangers, show up somewhere on happenstance, find out we all have a passion for this hobby, and we would all just sit there. So it doesn't matter who it is. Most of the time, if they have the same passion you do, you're going to fit right in, and things are just going to roll, and it's going to go great.
Right, awesome. Yeah. We could be talking all night about Band of Brothers, and it looks like I mentioned Walking Point earlier. It looks like our director Walking Point just joined in watching us, so that's pretty cool. Shout out to RJ. We've had him on the show before. But there's so much with Band of Brothers, and there's so many. When I think of Band of Brothers, I still think of how my wife reacts to it a lot. Because we talk about this, right? We watch it every year when it's cold. Mm-hmm. That late November, early December, coming up on Christmas, coming up on the anniversary of the Hitler's counteroffensive in the Ardennes, and it's just the perfect time of year to watch it. And of course, there's the one that she's always like, "Woo, yeah," and it's when Major Winters calls out Captain Sobel towards the end there.
Yep.
When he's just kind of walking by.
Salute the rank, not the man.
Captain Sobel. Yeah. That gets her. She just, I loved it because she just hates Sobel, right? So that's always I thought that was a pretty good touch because, Captain Sobel's such an intricate character, and, the poor guy ended his own life, I don't think very long after the end of the war. And, I don't want to talk too much about this guy. We all love to hate him, right? But from that garrison perspective, no better company commander for those guys at that time.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
yeah,
and
he galvanized them.
Yeah,
he really did. And to give credit where credit's due, had roles been reversed, right? Had it been Lieutenant Winters in charge of Easy Company in the training phase at Tagoa, and then it's Captain Sobel, that gets assigned to them because, what was his name? Lieutenant Meehan didn't survive the jump.
Yep.
Two totally different worlds, right? Like it's just it's a matter of timing for those guys, and that's kind of that aura I think that those boys have in that particular unit. It was timing, and I think we probably overlooked the fact that Sobel was part of that process. He was part of, like Henry said, galvanizing them and making them who they were, but also realizing what they were lacking and who they needed, the type of leader they needed to kind of take them to the next level. Sobel was that perfect garrison, in the rear with the gear, all those, rear echelon, the REMFs, the REMFs, the Pogues, whatever you want to call them. He was perfect for that, and of course, then so on and so on. So,
well, that's the nice thing about the Band of Brothers spinoffs books. It's just about every person who did one after the series came out and the book came out made sure to make sure that their audience of that particular book knew that they all knew and they all acknowledged that they wouldn't have been as successful as they were if it wasn't from him. And so when you read a lot of those,
Garnier.
yeah, when you read a lot of those books, there'll be at least one paragraph talking about, hey, the guy was a pain in our ass, but we would have not made it through if it wasn't for him. And he was our training, and he is the reason we were as good as we were. And they all had to sit after the book came out and the series came out, they had to, kind of sit his daughter down and tell her the same thing. Like, look.
Yeah, man, that guy, can you imagine? I mean, so I think it was it Brothers in Battle, Best of Friends?
Yeah.
It was the Garnier and Heffron book where they really go into a lot of that Sobel post-war and what it was like for his, oh, man.
You guys know how he passed away, right?
Huh?
You know how he passed away, right?
Yeah, he tried. Well, he tried to kill himself, but he survived.
Yeah, but he ended up passing away in, I think, sort of a hospital type atmosphere. But yeah, he ended up he had a failed suicide attempt.
Dang. Yeah, my mom feels that Iwo Jima's played a big part in my grandpa, because my grandma died and then my grandpa killed himself. But she often wondered, and that was the reason that she had me do my own research into grandpa's past World War II service, because she felt that it had really wore him down, and grandma was his rock, and that was taken away. Yeah, so I can totally understand.
And not to mention, these cats were so young. I mean, you hear all the time that your teenage, your early high school, your early adult, those are your formative years. I mean, a lot of the stuff that happens to you or the things you go through, make you the person you grow up to be. And the amount of atrocity they witnessed and participated in, it's just, I don't know, it's just mind-boggling.
Well, sticking with Iwo Jima, I mean, I know it flopped and all, but man, I think Flags of Our Fathers is a must-watch. I think Letters from Iwo Jima is a must-watch. I know you can't kind of mention one without the other.
Were those ever sold as a box set? If not, they should have been before DVDs went to the way of the dodo. I mean, I got both of them, but I think that would have been a great box set.
That would have made sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and it's not like you can't appreciate one without the other, because you certainly can. I mean, they are definitely standalone, right? But of course, same director, Clint Eastwood, and all that. But it is definitely, Letters from Iwo Jima, I will say, was powerful enough to you almost sympathize.
Yeah, sure.
With at least some elements of the Japanese garrison that was on Iwo Jima.
Well, and we've brought that up in the past as well, and I wholeheartedly agree with you. I think that's one of the endearing things of that movie is we kind of phrase here, it took away the boogeyman aspect of the enemy. And we've talked before, that was another great thing about Midway. Midway did the same thing. They took the boogeyman aspect away from the enemy, despite, what they're, especially when it comes down to the infantrymen, they're just don't follow what the Empire is telling them to do.
Well, you guys remember what Shifty said, right, about the Germans. That any other circumstances, they might have been good friends. They might have gone fishing together or whatever.
Yep.
I kind of felt that same way watching Letters from Iwo Jima. It was kind of like, man, these guys are just doing what they're told, and they're on this island. They don't want to be there, but, they're doing what they're supposed to do, and they're protecting their home. It was like, man, that was powerful.
Yeah.
And especially having a grandfather on the receiving end of that, from those guys.
Absolutely. And to kind of go back with our wartime production theme that we kind of kicked it off with 30 Seconds Over Tokyo, some great ones from the Pacific that I think of, Guadalcanal Diary, right?
Yeah.
To me, if it's got Richard Jackal in it and it's a black and white war film, it's going to be a good movie, right? Like, it just seems like that guy's military acting career, he's like the 17-year-old kid in like every single war movie from the 40s. I mean, it's unbelievable. He's probably been in like 80-some films about World War II, and it's like he's the same character, right? But Guadalcanal Diary, of course, he plays Johnny Chicken Anderson. I know Sands of Iwo Jima is not necessarily a wartime production. That's 49, but a lot of people say that movie saved the United States Marine Corps. and I don't know, and Henry might have a little bit more in-depth knowledge on it, but from what I understand is after 45, right after the end of the war, naturally we downsize, right? The question came up, as it has multiple times before and since, is there a need for the Marine Corps? And obviously anybody no, hang on, I'm not talking trash about the Marines. It's a fair question, right? Because we started blending in ways that, you look at it now. I'd love for somebody to really answer the question, what is it that the Marine Corps can do that there's not somebody in another branch of service that can do that? I honestly, tell me, show me. Not saying that there's not in some way a need for them, but in the grand scheme of things, it seems to me that it's just more legacy, because it's not so much what they can do now, it's what they've done. It's what they've always done. It's that spirit. It's the Corps, right? It's the Marine Corps.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. But even as early as the late 40s, when you're looking at budgeting, even though, it's not like they have a huge budget, right? But
no, don't they have the smallest budget of all the branches of the military?
Right. I mean, they're a department of the Navy, so I don't know. It's strange. And maybe I don't understand, because maybe I'm a prima donna Army soldier that had everything brand new 20 years before the Marine Corps got it. And there's so many facets in the Army now that can do anything that I just don't see it even today. But so they wanted to show what the Marine Corps really contributed in World War II, which I think is interesting, because since then it has, it's the Army in the European theater, and the Marines saved the day in the Pacific, right? And I've mentioned this before, even though the Army fielded 4 times as many divisions in the Pacific that the Marine Corps did, and had more island invasions than the Marine Corps did.
How many times bigger,
Right, yeah. It was 99 divisions to 6.
Big strength.
But for people who don't know that, it's the Marine Corps that saved the world in the Pacific, right? It was the Marines versus the Japanese, and the Army versus the Germans. And it's just such a misnomer that it's almost embarrassing to hear people say that. So, but in the early 40s, they really, in the late 40s, after the early stages in peacetime America after the Second World War, there was an effort being made to kind of save the Marine Corps. And what better way to do that than, of course, talk about what they did at some of the bloodiest campaigns, Tarawa and then Iwo Jima. Of course, they're going to show the flag raising, and they got to put the biggest name in lights to make people go see this movie. Who is going to save the day? Sergeant John M. Stryker, the world's oldest, buck sergeant in the Marine Corps, right? Like, I think about that. So John Wayne's 42 in that film, and that's really kind of, his career was still kind of on the up in the late 40s, right? I mean, he saved the day as a tall Texan in early Western films, and he's dabbled, of course, in other genres, and that's great. He's just always John Wayne. You can't change it. It doesn't matter. Like, like The Quiet Man, you can't do it, but like, you're John Wayne, right? Anyway. So he was just one of those guys that you don't see. It's like Elvis. When you see Elvis in a film, doesn't matter what the film is, it's Elvis. Like, he can play whatever he wants. You can dress him in anything. It's Elvis. You don't change him.
It could be 1843. He can be out in the West with his 1970s bouffant and sideburns.
Exactly. Yeah. I know you're talking about Frankie and Johnny on the steamboat. I get it. But so I think it's interesting, that movie, just beyond being a movie, having those motivations to save the Marine Corps. And as far as I know my brother had to watch it in boot. And as far as I know, I've never been told different, that you still watch that when you go through Marine Corps boot camp. It's what you do. And I haven't been told otherwise. I'm not saying yay or nay. It's just, to my knowledge, I've heard that every Marine watches that film in boot camp, and rightly so.
I can guarantee you that he wasn't the only one, because it's 1949 they were filming that?
Right.
Yeah, Sands was 49.
So I'm sure a lot of the extras were there too, but Ira Hayes is in that movie. And we're talking about PTSD. Could you imagine? I'm sure there's plenty of people on the set, the extras, but in this particular conversation we're talking about Ira Hayes, because we know how he ended up passing and the PTSD that he dealt with. Could you imagine surviving through that, and then a few short years being on a movie set, portraying probably the worst time of your life that just happened 4.5 years ago. And if you Google Ira Hayes and Sansa Iwo Jima, there's a shot. And Ira Hayes is sitting there in a foxhole, and there's two other guys. I'm not filming. You can see the boom mics in the background. It's just a in-between shot. And the two other actors are smiling at the camera, and Ira still has that 1,000-yard stare. He's just staring off into the horizon while the other two actors in the foxhole are looking at the camera, and you can see the boom mic and all that. Even on that set, just looking at this picture of him, he's 1,000 miles away.
He did not have anything good to say about that film.
Yeah.
And you can probably Google that easy enough. And he's not the only one that portrayed himself in that film, right? John Wayne hands the flag to Gagnon, Bradley, and Ira Hayes. And, of course, Harry Schreier plays himself, lieutenant that raised the first flag, right? Yep. There. And then there's the conversation between Colonel Shoup on Tarawa, Colonel Shoup playing himself, the only surviving Medal of Honor recipient, talking to the battalion commander of 2-8. The name is escaping me. He's got a big handlebar mustache. Oh, Henry, help me out.
I'm trying to think.
He's walking up and down the beach with a shotgun.
Oh man, sorry, I don't know that much about 8th Marines.
Red Beach 3, Major Crow. Major Crow and Shoup have a conversation as themselves. Communicating on Tarawa. So there was a lot of guys basically playing themselves.
Yeah.
Like Don said, only 4, 5, 6 short years later. But yeah, I know Ira Hayes said that wasn't at all what it was like, right? Well, of course not. It's 1949, and it had a purpose. It had a bigger purpose than Ira Hayes' war.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just crazy to think, though. It's just guys are probably just getting past some of the nightmares and maybe starting to compartmentalize some of their memories. And hey, come on down, let's relive it for 6 months while we shoot this film.
Right.
Well, I need the money, so I guess I'll be there.
Dennis, do you have any other films that you wanted to hit?
Oh no, of course, They Were Expendable. I love that one. Back to our Baton with Robert Taylor. That one was really pretty gritty. Have you guys seen that one with Robert Taylor?
No.
Oh yeah.
If I have, it's been so long I don't remember it.
You guys
still holds up. It still holds up, man.
Maybe we need to come up with like a top
Baton.
10 1945 to 1959 World War II movies that people must watch. All the classics.
Yeah.
Because we're always talking about books. Speaking of books.
Oh.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Oh, I was going to say, what's the one with Errol Flynn? And that probably already sounds hokey. But
Objective
it's actually,
Burma?
Objective Burma.
Yeah.
That's a great
So
film,
good.
man.
Yeah,
It's a
that's
great
another one.
film.
Haggard. They're all getting malaria, and
Yep.
they're selling it. Oh,
Yeah.
that was horrible.
Flynn, I thought Flynn, that was a great part for him.
Hey man, can I throw a Flynn movie in there?
Yeah.
It's not World War II. It's literally one of the first movies I ever watched. Dawn Patrol with David Niven.
I've never seen it.
I mean, I was like 4 years old, and I remember it coming on our little black and white set. And I loved World War I airplanes before I graduated to World War II airplanes. And I just remember my brother and me. He was probably 11, and I remember us watching Dawn Patrol.
Yeah.
I'll have to watch that one. I
haven't seen it since I was probably 4. So,
yeah.
But
how about They Died with Their Boots On? Errol Flynn is
Esther,
the 7th Cav. Yeah.
Olivia de Havilland. I think wasn't she in that? Olivia de Havilland, or was that Joan Fontaine? What was it? Yeah, Olivia de Havilland, I think.
Huh.
Yeah, those are good.
I mean, Battle of the Bulge, right? I love Battle of the Bulge. I watch that every year. Midway, Tora. I mean, there's some.
Bridge
oh
too
yeah,
far.
man, I love Tora.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Because they were speaking Japanese, it just added this degree of realism to it.
Right.
Yeah, it seemed like that was one of the first ones to do that.
Yeah.
It was pretty awesome. Then there's all the submarine movies, Das Boot, with the German U-boat commander. Man, that was rough.
I had my son and I just watched that here a few months ago.
Yeah.
I couldn't get as into Stalingrad though, even though it was Wolfgang Peterson or whoever, the same director.
Mm-hmm.
Stalingrad just wasn't, to me, there's something about it didn't.
What about Enemies at the Gates?
Oh yeah. The sniper duel.
What I didn't see that movie until probably the mid 2000s, and what I kind of liked from it because Call of Duty World at War was out right around that time, and when you're playing through the campaign mode, and I had not seen that movie yet, you're pinned down, you're inside this fountain, you get a gun and you snipe the guy taking a shower, and you snipe the other guys, and it's right out of that movie. And you're like, oh shit, that's where they got it from. And that's such a good game. Too bad, it's unplayable nowadays. I almost wish they would come out with that because, Call of Duty's been nothing but putting out the same game for the last 15 years. Too bad they won't reboot World at War because that was a fantastic game, especially running across the airfield at Peleliu and all that stuff. Fantastic game. But hey Jeff, I got a question for you. What you reading?
Well, that's a quick answer because I'm taking this one nice and slow. Of course, I'm reading With the Old Breed, and I cannot wait. So I think I've sent you guys some pictures before, right? So our librarian will put out an email to all the teachers and say, fill out this little form, tell us what you're reading and what you're listening to, and then she'll have somebody come around and staple it up outside your door on your classroom. So naturally, what I'm listening to is always going to be What's the Scuttlebutt because it's amazingly free marketing, right?
Absolutely.
But I can't wait. I can't wait till she posts With the Old Breed. It should be up in the next couple of days. I'll send y'all a picture of what Mr. Copsetta is reading. But before we get beyond this, I wanted to talk a little bit real quick before we go about what I'm drinking. Can I do that now, Don?
Hey Jeff, I got a question for you. What you drinking?
What you drinking? Well, it's cold now, but so. Guys, I had this opportunity. I connected with a new friend over in Germany now, and if you follow him on Instagram, and you should, if you don't, you really need to look at World War II Wayfinder, World War II historian. This guy has some amazing content out there. Struck up a conversation. He's going to be on the podcast one day when we can get past the, he's like 60 time zones away. We have to figure that out.
No, we can make it work.
We'll make it work. We always do. Just in our conversation, just nonchalantly, by the way, I'm the CEO of Warbird Coffee. And I went, what? Whoa. Never heard of it.
Warbirds and coffee. Two of your favorite things.
And coffee. And so just showed up today. And so I pulled this bag out of the mailbox, right? It's like crammed in there. And if y'all know my wife, she gets 30 Amazon packages a day.
And you
right?
get
so I didn't even
one
look
book
to see
every
if it was
6 months.
Yeah.
Or a sticker from me.
Right. She said, whatever. Come on. Okay, 28 packages.
I think I sent you
anyway.
an art printer too, didn't I, Jeff? At some point, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, but
you sure did. You sure did.
He didn't get it until 3 months later because it got lost in all her Amazon boxes.
So yeah, I don't even look at the name on it. This is my wife's. I'm like, that's an interesting feeling package, though, right? I'm walking into the house. I'm like, man, something smells amazing out in the front yard. This smells really. And I didn't even dawn on me, right? So I put the package up on the bar, and I'm walking in, and I'm like, I smell it in the house. And I'm looking at the front, like, what? She bought a bunch of flowers the other day. Like, what am I smelling? And then I got closer, and I looked down, and it had my name on this package. Warbird Coffee, you can smell it from the sealed package, and then it's in the clear, like the bubble wrap, sealed plastic wrap after that, and you could still smell this amazing stuff. So he gave me 2 sacks of this stuff. You get on his website, they've got some amazing marketing tools, and I just want to read you their commitment. So the Warbird Coffee Company, their commitment, they have a clear objective. That is to give back to those who work so hard preserving our aviation heritage from World War II. These aircraft are unique reminders of a time when young men and women would place themselves at the mercy of the enemy and all too often made the ultimate sacrifice in the name of freedom. I can't wait to talk about this at my air show in less than 2 weeks. Amazing coffee. John, thank you so much. We've got to get you Henry and Don's address.
Yeah, I
can
can't wait to
share
try some.
I mean, this guy knows his stuff. He's got the Square D, the bloody 100th bomb group on this bag, right? I've got another one. So what I'm drinking is, let's see, 47 coffee. Got a beautiful P-47 on
Oh, P-47. Does he have one for the Corsair?
I would hope so. If not, I think we need to make that happen. So, I've been waiting.
I think
I've been waiting
like
to drink this.
WTSP flavored coffee would be fantastic too.
Well, I like the way Don thinks.
A
that's
WTSP cup would be amazing. The Lucky Strike, the little. I mean, that would be great. So, it's great. I mean, when I took the first sip, I did the little swirl. I was wafting. It was resonating like gazelles running through the savannah when I was listening to it. I mean, it was.
The only thing you're
coffee,
missing,
John.
the only thing you're missing to make that coffee taste better. One of these bad boys. You need to get one of these.
Of course, he's gonna. Yep,
make a
of course
coffee.
He's gonna rub that in.
Got to get yourself a nice Corningware milk glass.
Yeah.
I'm looking at their website. I like the pinup girl shirts they have, and they got as a baseball cap snob that I am, they have some fantastic looking caps on there too.
Yeah.
Speaking of fantastic looking caps, look at that bad boy, huh? Yeah.
Oh, that is sharp.
I do like the new. Let me see the back of it, Don.
Just snap back.
Snap back. Okay.
Let me address something real quick. As I said, I'm a hat snob, and when I went to make these hats, there was already flat bills. As a hat snob, I don't like shitty hats. And somebody who worked in radio, I've been given a lot of crappy promotional products. And when it comes to baseball caps, you want a bill that has at least 6 or more lines of threading in it. If it has 3 or less, that is an indicator that someone has cut corners. The bill's not going to hold a fold. If you like a nice folded bill, it's floppy and crappy. So I say all that to say this. The people that we use to print our hats, they had 3 styles. They have these flat bill hats, which, by the way, the quality of it is fantastic. They had trucker hats, which I made as well. And then they have what they call the dad hats. And those are the only hats they had on their website that had a fold, kind of like Henry's hat. But looking at them, they have low
like
flat crowns. They got the Velcro back, and they had 3 lines of stitching. And from my experiences, those are like the hats that marketing companies like print their business name to give away at trade shows that people put on and they throw away. I just can't see putting our logo on there and charging someone $25 for that hat. So I didn't even put it up there. Hopefully at some point they will make some nicer hats available for those of you who don't like flat bills. There's a good chance that the flat bills will hold a fold if you put one in there. But that's so for the people wondering why we don't have, we just have the trucker hats and the flat bill hats. I just couldn't see asking you guys to pay that kind of money for what I anticipate to be a very low quality hat just from what I know about hats. So that's that. But you can get the hats, the shirts, towels, and I'll get some coffee mugs on there too. Just head over to WTSPWWII.com. Click on the Back the Attack link at the top, and that'll take you to our merch store. You can get all of our history. You can get the shirt that Jeff has on. You can get all of our legacy What's the Scuttlebutt shirts. You can get the new one with the new logo and stickers and all that good stuff there as well. But I'm jealous that Jeff has all the coffee and I'm sitting here drinking a Barks root beer. Which, by the way, this is the only root beer with caffeine in it. Little heads up for you caffeine lovers out there. So, Henry, what you reading?
I am about 307 pages into
Show off.
Red Scorpion by Peter Saskin. And this is the Red Scorpion is the war patrols of the USS Rasher. And Peter Saskin, who wrote it, his father was a machinist mate on the Rasher. So he's it's really good, man. They were in the Pacific, just a great submarine book. We've talked subs before.
Is it a good read? Is it easy to read?
Yeah, man. I'm really enjoying it. And the guy knows this. Peter Saskin, the son who wrote the book, was a naval veteran. So I mean, he knows the vernacular. In fact, I think Naval Institute Press actually published an edition of it. So if they picked it up, I think it was published in '95. It's really good. I mean, it's written by somebody who knows submarines and knows the vernacular and obviously has a passion for the history. So yeah, it's a good read.
That definitely helps. Dennis, what you reading?
I'm reading a book by Michael Kenneth Williams. It's called Scenes from My Life. Michael Kenneth Williams was on that TV show The Wire.
Okay.
He was a black guy that had this scar. He's got that scar down the middle of his face. And yeah, I'm reading about his life growing up in the hood and how he got out. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's a quick read.
So I'm proud to say I finally finished the longest book. Actually, it was a very short book, just I'm a slow reader and, well, life. And so I came in here and I was like, I need a new book to read. And as we talk about before, sometimes we just have so many books that we forget we have them. There's a lot of times we're doing a what you're reading segment, and I'll actually order a book in the middle of the show because somebody will bring one up and I'll forget I even have it. And it just happens to fall perfectly with tonight's episode. And I'm interested if Jeff has an opinion on this book because I'm only 43 pages into it. I'm staying with the boys. The Heroic Life of Sergeant John Basilone, USMC.
Yes.
Now, I know you're a Basilone guy, but have you read this particular book?
Oh, absolutely. It was so good. I sent it to my brother, and I haven't reordered it. I miss having that book. The Basilone family gave that man that wrote the book the blessing to write it, and you've noticed in first person. You're reading it.
That was the thing I was going to say. Yeah. I'm enjoying it, but the part it took me at least 10 pages to get over is the fact that I know the outcome of John Basilone, and I could understand like the early stages of his life. Okay, maybe he wrote home some letters. You know, he was home during the war bond drive. He could have relayed a lot of this information, but like when they're heading out to Iwo Jima and he's describing how the guys are acting, the fact that the author, who's a third person, is writing the book in the first person view during historical periods that we know that he would have never had time to report his feelings back. It just goes to show you, the amount of detail and research he did.
Wow.
But once you get over that little thing, and it's maybe not even a stepping stone for anybody, maybe it's just one of those weird things for me. And like I said, I got over it after, 8 or 9 pages, but just in the back of my mind, I'm reading this like it was a little, but I'm enjoying it. And I do like how I don't want to say in a Pulp Fiction-esque style, but it kind of is. They start off the book heading here, and then the next chapter jumps back to him growing up as a kid, and then they go back to modern Iwo Jima era, then they go back to him going to, joining the army. And so it kind of switches back and forth because obviously that particular mission at Iwo Jima is going to be very short content. And so they're jumping around. So I'm interested to see, because I don't know how far into his service this thing goes up into that. If they cover the Guadalcanal stuff on there, I'm interested to find out.
You're going to love it. And don't look at the last page.
I won't.
Don't, because it ends marvelously.
The thing that kind of threw me off, and you guys speak to me off the air quite a bit, that I don't clutch my pearls at language, but I was a little surprised at some of the language being used as him as a first person. I mean, it made sense, but it's just not something you see too much in a lot of the books that we read. And that too, it's like, okay, well, clearly, that's the way he spoke with the upbringing he had, but with a lot of the books that we read, you see the occasional words, but some of us are like, oh wow, that's cool. Just in the context, and just because of the amount of books we read. Once again, it's not horrible. It's just I was a little caught. I guess caught off guard a little bit. I mean, it didn't offend me by no means, but it made perfect sense, especially the environment they're in. I just think sometimes these books are censored, whereas this is being more true and realistic.
I felt the same way, and when you get to you will talk about his time in the Army.
Yeah, I'm on that now where he's talking about Manila and the girl down there.
Right. It's interesting, and you definitely see Basilone maybe in a slightly different light, and by different I mean probably a truer light.
Yeah. Not the comic book.
The guy was a scrappy dude. And he came from a scrappy place in America, right? I mean, after reading that, I'll be honest, I'm a little I feel like maybe the actor that played him in the Pacific didn't quite was maybe a little too refined, a little too clean cut. I mean, if you listen to or watch videos of Basilan when he came home on that war bond drive, right? You can tell that dude, he's not super educated. He doesn't really even speak all that well, and he kind of stumbles, and he has a very unique accent. I mean, it's a very thick Italian accent, but there's something else kind of mixed in there. And I know even like my grandfather, who never spoke Portuguese or anything, but thick Portuguese descent, had some of those same kind of, just didn't say words right. Like he wouldn't say mother, he would say mutter.
Yeah,
mutter.
And like I said, I'm fresh into this book, but to Jeff's point, I think in the miniseries they kind of gave you the war bond version of him. I mean, they touched on a little bit with him and the actresses, but according to this book, there's a lot more of that going on than just the occasional war bond tale. Because the terminology, he was a pea chasing. I mean, was basically his major, at least early on in the Army time in Manila. It was boxing, chasing down evildoers, and chasing tail. That was his hierarchy, his holy trilogy, if you will.
Henry, have you read it?
I actually have not.
I think Jeff was talking about this one night. And I think this was one of his books during the show. Pulled up Amazon, hit order, and then just put it on my bookshelf. And so, like I said, I'm 43 pages into it. I like it. Just had to get my mind wrapped around the whole third person, first person thing. But
it's powerful. I think it's a powerful way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody have anything to plug? Anything coming down the pipe? I know we said earlier Jeff was on an episode of We the Happy Few, and that's still available, right? People can, I'm sure they can still find that and find it through their services.
I've got a short stories series that I'm starting. I had Jeff actually read my first one. He read the rough draft. It's going to be about the suicide cliffs at Saipan.
Oh boy!
And the LCI gunboats that were around there with interpreters trying to get the civilians to not kill themselves. And then the aftermath, what happens to human bodies, and this and that, and the sailors, what they had to deal with. Because they couldn't leave the area. They had to stay there. So it's a short story series that I'm starting, and the first one will be coming out in the next couple weeks. It's going to be about that. Yeah.
Well, get a hold of us when that release comes out. We'll be more than happy to promote it.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Henry, you got anything coming down the line? You're usually a busy fella.
I was on Sarah's show last week. As far as this is March 6th. That's nothing else to mention right now. Stuff farther out, but nothing I thought of to bring up.
I've missed like 3 events this year so far, and it just I want to get out and go, but like especially down here in Florida, they're like 2 or 3 hours away, 4 hours away, which ain't far. I've been doing this for years, but I'll tell you what, we're still the hurricane, and we got off light. I mean, I'm still waiting for my check from my mortgage company because I'm waiting for them to send it back. I got to get a roof and both my cars painted, and that's getting off light. And just the amount my insurance has gone up from them has increased our monthly nut so much. It's like, well, I'm probably not going to be doing too many. Driving my V8 Tundra 200 miles.
And you had to rebuild your fence, didn't you?
Yeah, but I did that all,
You did that on your own.
I did that on my own. It took me 2 weeks. A little bit. The gate cost me more than putting up the rest of the damn fence because the fence post and all that stuff is commercial grade, and you can't find it. I found the post because it's universal, but the slats look like cleaned up those out of my yard, but the gate itself, I had to buy a different version, and I spent more on the gate. But anyhow, it's like, especially gas prices, inflation. It's like I can't be driving to Georgia.
Did your dad get his Gibson replaced?
No, sadly. Actually, yes, he had insurance on I think one of the pianos. His mixing board, he did not. The crazy thing was he had one piano in a soft gig bag, and then he had one of them in a hard road case. And the one in the road case got more water in it than the gig bag. The gig bag just floated around. But yeah, My brother's supposed to be coming down from Vegas at the end of the month, and we're going to go drywall my dad's house. So it's been the hurricane hit in September. My dad's house, his neighborhood still doesn't have electricity. I think him and 6 other people's houses, trailers, were the only ones that weren't completely annihilated. And so his church has helped him gut everything. So my brother comes down. We're going to go there and help drywall and get it ready. And but yeah, so it's so many people down here are still put out. It's just insane. But yeah, so I don't have a lot of living history events to come on here and talk about, just because, I mean, there was one last week and I didn't make it to. But anyhow, we want to thank each and every one of you for your continued support of the What's the Scuttlebutt podcast. And if you haven't done so already, please head over to WTSPWWII.com. You can find all the old episodes. Every single episode we've ever done is up on that website. You can also click on the support the show, and you can sign up for our Patreon. It costs you $1 a month. There's 2 other plans on there. If you want to sign up for those, great. We're more than happy at the $1 a month. And if you haven't done so, please head over to YouTube, like, subscribe, watch our content, and you can join in on the conversation. Black 17 Productions was making comments during the show about their favorite World War II miniseries. So if you guys want to watch us live stream every Monday night and join in the conversation, you can ask us questions in real time in the chat, and we'll be more than happy to answer them. And all of that good stuff. But thank you guys so much. For myself, Jeff Copsetta, Henry Sledge, and our friend Dennis, we want to thank each and every one of you, and we will talk to you all sometime next Monday.
This has been a Digital 410 production.